The Champions League starts tomorrow, and when you're watching this video, the Champions League actually starts today. So I thought, why not get into my predictions? We're going to walk through the entire round of 16. We are going to go through the entire bracket. I'm going to let y'all know who I think is going to win the Champions League, who I think is going to be the Champions League top scorer. So let's just get straight into it. You have Liam Rossignol, you have Luis Enrique, but most notably, you had Enzo Maresca, who completely demolished Luis Enrique and Paris Saint-Germain in the Club World Cup final just last summer. And there are a ton of really good matchups to look out for in this game. You look at the midfield battle of Vitinha and João Neves. You look at what Chelsea have in Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. Obviously, you look at the front three of Paris Saint-Germain, and they're so fluid in the way that they attack. They have Barcola, they have Doué, they have Kvaratskhelia, they have Ousmane Dembélé. They have a ton of potential front threes they could go for, and there's just an abundance of quality, and we saw it in display, especially in the Champions League run. We saw them run rampant in the final against Inter Milan. But Chelsea, I mean, they're absolutely top as well, and one of my favorite footballers in the world right now, unfortunately, plays for Chelsea. João Pedro is incredible. Obviously, you have Cole Palmer. You have players like Pedro Neto who can make a big difference. But in my opinion, this specific tie is going to be won and lost in the midfield battle. I know João Neves suffered an injury, but I was reading some reports earlier today that they are expecting him to at least make the squad, so it'll be interesting to see if he plays. You have Vitinha as well, obviously in Paris Saint-Germain's midfield. Does Luis Enrique opt to go with Zaire Emery as a third man? Again, a really good problem to have just because there's so much quality. On the other side of the table, Chelsea's midfield, top. Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, Reece James, who can play right back, can play anywhere. I think it's going to be a really good tie. I think the experience in which PSG had in winning the Champions League last year is going to be enough to carry them over the line in this tie. I think it's going to be a really close tie, but I'm going to give the edge just to PSG. Next, we have Galatasaray versus Liverpool, and I'm just going to say one name and one name only, and that name I'm going to say is Victor Osimhen. It seems like in every big tournament, club or country, there is an upset, and I don't really know if you can call this an upset at this point in the season. Galatasaray sitting top of the league in the Turkish league. Liverpool having the type of season that they're having, especially given the fact that they won the Premier League last season. There are a lot of question marks surrounding Arne Slot. There are a lot of question marks surrounding the attack of Liverpool. Obviously went and spent some big money in the summer on Hugo Ekitike, but I'm going to go with the upset, if you will. I don't even know if you can call it upset. Like I said, I think Galatasaray, I think Victor Osimhen runs riot in this tie. It's going to be tough. Obviously, always is coming up against Virgil, but I think Galatasaray is going to find a way to squeak by in this one. And of course, it wouldn't be the Champions League without Real Madrid, Manchester City, which seems like this has been the tie for the last 100 years. You just knew that there was absolutely no chance that it was going to be anything other than Real Madrid versus Manchester City, that it was going to be anything other than Pep Guardiola versus Arbeloa. It was going to be anything other than Kylian Mbappe versus Erling Haaland. And of course, this is what it is. Both teams have had quite interesting seasons, to be honest. Real Madrid has had their ups and their downs. Quite frankly, they just snuck by Benfica in the playoff stage to get to this round to begin with. But Manchester City has also had a kind of up and down season. Obviously, they're still chasing the league leaders Arsenal in the Premier League. But the reality is, regardless of the inconsistencies that both of these teams have had, when you look at both teams on paper, I mean, the amount of quality is undeniable. I don't even need to list the names. You know the names. You know the quality on both sides of the team sheets. But for me, just because it is the Champions League, and this is probably a very boring answer, I'm going to go with Real Madrid. Obviously, the know-how. I've watched a lot of Manchester City this season, and their rest defense and their defending transitions actually really scares me for them. in this tie. Obviously, when you see the quality that Real Madrid has to hit teams on the counter, hit those channels, those wide channels, and really create dangerous chances on transition moments, I think Real Madrid are going to find a way to counter City and get a few from those transition moments, from sitting back, defending in a block, and then hitting them when they can, kind of pulling those fullbacks in and then getting in beyond. I think Real Madrid are going to have enough firepower. I'm not sure if City are going to have the ability to cope with those quick transitions because, like I said, I haven't loved their defensive transitions all season. I think it's probably their biggest weak point. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Real Madrid to win this tie. Next tie, Bayern Munich and Atalanta. And I'm really excited for this one because I actually think that Bayern is going to have a top Champions League. And I'm just going to say it now. I actually think Harry Kane is going to lead the Champions League in goals. I think that Bayern are going to go on a real run here. And I think Harry Kane is going to be the leading goal scorer in the Champions League. I really like Bayern overall. Their entire 11 is top. Obviously, Vincent Kompany has had some success. I think they are going to win this tie over Atalanta. Before I move on to the next tie, by the way, the Atalanta-Dortmund tie was one of the most incredible ties I've seen to get to this point. Atalanta were absolutely incredible. It was such a back and forth tie. They're a really exciting team to watch. And I just wanted to make sure that I threw that in there before I moved on to the next tie because although I think Bayern are going to make a deep run in this tie, I think Atalanta are a really fun side to watch as well. Newcastle and Barcelona, Eddie Howe versus Hansi Flick. And look, Newcastle are a good side. They just beat my Manchester United in the Premier League last week. They have some really good technical players, but I think obviously where they thrive is in the physical aspect of the game. When you look at Joelinton, when you look at Sandro Tonali, when you look at Anthony Gordon, you look at Anthony Elanga, obviously you look at Dan Burn, there is some real know-how, there is some real dark arts about the way that they can play football. And I do think, although there's been questions about his ability as a manager this season, given the fact that they probably haven't hit the heights that they expected to hit, I still think Eddie Howe is a top gaffer. However, Hansi Flick in Barcelona, I mean, we cannot get around what Lamine Yamal has been doing this season and basically ever since he stepped onto the professional scene. The quality in their midfield as well. I mean, you can make the argument very easily that Pedri is the best midfielder in the world. For me, it is still Vitinha, but you can definitely make that argument for Pedri as well. I just think that Barca are on a different level. And for me, they are, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but probably, the strongest team, in my opinion, from top to bottom in this bracket. And for that reason, I have them beating Newcastle in this tie. Next tie, Atleti Tottenham. I'm not even going to talk much about this. Obviously, Tottenham are fighting relegation, which is crazy to say given the fact that they won the Europa League last year. They're in the Champions League knockout stages and they're fighting for their lives in the Prem. Atletico Madrid, I mean, Diego Simeone, I just think this is a bit of a mismatch. I think kind of where the two teams are in their respective seasons so far, I think they're obviously at very opposite ends of the table. And for that reason, I think that Atletico is just going to have a little bit too much for Tottenham, and I'm going to go with an Atleti win in this one. Bodo Glimt and Sporting. Obviously, I have watched a lot of Sporting this season, being a Benfiquista, but I have to be honest, I have not watched a ton of Bodo Glimt this season. There is just too much football to watch, and I haven't really been able to watch many of their football matches. But of course, I got the chance to watch them over two legs against Inter Milan, and especially in that second leg, the way that they were bopping the ball around, the way that they were first to every ball, some of the football that they were playing was absolutely gorgeous. It was total football. It's why I tune in. It's not this long ball stuff. It's not this set piece stuff that we're going to probably see a lot in these knockout games. They are playing beautiful football, and I would love for them to make a real run in this tournament. I think they're going to win this tie, especially if they can carry over what they did against Inter Milan into this tie. I think that they have a really good chance of knocking off Sporting. I'm going to go with Bodo Glimt. I'm really excited to continue to watch them in this tournament, and I hope that they can progress and go quite far. And last but not least, in the round of 16, I am going to go with Arsenal over Leverkusen. I think Arsenal are built for knockout football. I think how solid they are defensively is going to make a massive difference moving forward in this tournament. I think that they have players who can be game breakers like Bukayo Saka, like Eze, like Victor Gyökeres if he decides to turn up in this tournament. I think that Arteta has really built a side that is super strong for knockout tournaments, and I think they're just going to have a little bit too much for Leverkusen home and away. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Arsenal. So moving on to the quarterfinals, we have Paris Saint-Germain versus Galatasaray. And for all of the things that I spoke about in the first leg, PSG for me, just an abundance of talent and quality. Luis Enrique, probably my favorite manager or one of my favorite managers in world football. Galatasaray, I think this is where their tournament ends. Obviously, to have to go through Liverpool and then go through Paris Saint-Germain is not the most favorable draw. That's just what it is in 2026 with this Champions League bracket, something that I got to be honest, I'm not really a big fan of. I just wish they would draw every round. Anyways, that's besides the point. I'm going to go with Paris Saint-Germain over Galatasaray in the quarterfinals. And then we have Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich. And I think this is where Real Madrid bow out. I'm going to go with Bayern Munich on that side of the bracket. So it is going to be, in my opinion, Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern Munich in the semifinals. On the opposite side of the bracket, I think we are going to see, like I said, Barca Atleti. Give me Barca, give me Hansi Flick over Simeone. Obviously, Atletico just got the best of Barcelona in the Copa del Rey, so they are going to want some revenge in that aspect, and I think they're going to get it. I think Barcelona goes to the semis, and then Bodo Glimt, I think this is where their run, if you will, comes to an end. I think Arsenal, like I said, with their know-how, the way that they play football, the way that they set up defensively, I think their set pieces, although you may not like it and I might not like it, I think it is going to play a massive factor over the course of this tournament, where you can get those goals essentially from nothing, from a set piece in a game where perhaps you're not playing the best football. I really think it's going to make a massive difference, and for that reason, I think they're going to get a couple of goals via set pieces in both legs against Leverkusen and in Bodo Glimt as well. So I think Arsenal are going to go to the semifinals, which leaves Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern Munich. I think Bayern Munich go to the finals. From the opposite side, I think this is going to be an incredible tie if we do end up getting it. A mix of styles in the way that Hansi Flick and Mikel Arteta play. I'm going to go with Hansi Flick and Barcelona. So the Champions League final, I think we are going to see Barcelona and Bayern Munich. And I think we are going to have a German champion. I think Bayern Munich are going to win the Champions League. And in my opinion, like I said earlier in the video, I think Harry Kane is going to be the Champions League top goal scorer. But that is it for this one. Let me know in the comments down below who you think is going to win the Champions League. We are going to be dropping some reaction videos once we finish the round of 16, move on to the round of 8, and then we will also be tactically analyzing, previewing, and reviewing some games as well. So if you like the football content, remember to leave a like on the video, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. I'll chat to y'all again very soon. Until next time, peace.